The galactic assembly chamber shimmered with tension. Holographic projections of hundreds of species flickered above crystalline podiums, all speaking at once, a symphony of clicks, growls, light pulses, and subsonic vibrations. In the center, the grand harmonizer of the Iller Order, Mseru the Third Spiral, floated serenely, her iridescent tentacles gently waving in calculated calm. She adjusted her translator node, and let her voice echo with the dignity of a civilization that had not known violence in 10 millennia. Esteemed delegates, we must not overreact. The humans are merely awake. Her statement silenced the chamber like a planetary blackout. Even the Vorthak envoy stopped mid-snarl. All eyes, or their equivalent, turned to the glowing sphere that represented Earth's quadrant. Awake! The Vorthak general hissed, his massive scale-armored frame coiled with restrained aggression. That's what you call it? They haven't emitted a single diplomatic ping in 4,000 years, and now they're firing off probes, lighting up deep space comms, terraforming moons. That's not awake, that's mobilizing. The Nerlix ambassador, a gaseous being inside a floating containment bubble, burbled sympathetically. We suggest a containment mission. Peacefully. Subtly. Perhaps with just a few orbital lasers. No lasers, Sarah said. The humans must not be provoked. They're humans, roared the Vorthak general. Their blood is made of caffeine and vengeance. When they went quiet, 3 empires fell in under a century. 3. Mseru's translator words softly as she composed her response. And perhaps that silence was them, learning. Evolving. For better or worse. A ripple of discomfort passed through the chamber. It was agreed. A diplomatic delegation would go. Observe. Communicate. Assess threat levels. The usual. With luck, the humans had mellowed. With luck, they remained the same slightly deranged, overly theatrical species known for threatening to obliterate planets and then inviting enemies to barbecues. A Vorthak warship escorted the delegation, cloaked but fuming. The Iller's diplomatic vessel, Harmony's Wing, slid into Earth's orbit like a prayer. The ship was shaped like a shell, humming with hymns of peace and bearing thousands of years of collective galactic wisdom. And yet, as Earth's blue curve came into view, Mseru found herself uncertain. They were greeted by a single human shuttle. Sleek, understated, gleaming like it had just been polished for show. It docked without ceremony. No fanfare, no weapons, no visible threat. Then came the human. Simon Gray stepped out of the shuttle, wearing a navy blue suit with a lapel pin in the shape of a teacup. His hair was perfectly in place, his shoes unreasonably clean for someone stepping onto an interstellar docking platform. "Welcome to Earth," he said, voice warm and crisp. Simon Gray, representative of Terran Interests, Department of Extraterrestrial Formalities. You may call me Simon. Or Sir, if we're playing chess. He extended his hand, palm open in that ancient gesture of greeting. Mseru floated forward and gently extended a tentacle. It brushed his hand like a breeze over water. The Vorthak general behind her growled something obscene in his own language. Simon didn't flinch. He smiled. Charmed truly. Now, who's ready for brunch? That was how the galactic delegation found itself sitting at a long wooden table outside a cafe in Geneva, overlooking a lake with swans, and an old woman feeding pigeons while humming something from the early 2000s. Simon poured tea for Mseru, coffee for the general, and orange juice for the Nerlix, though it promptly hissed and evaporated in the containment bubble. We were worried, Mseru said carefully. Your silence these past millennia. Oh yes, Simon said. We've been on sabbatical. Bit of introspection, bit of innovation. Gardening, mostly. Some asteroid mining. A bit of light weather manipulation. Yoga. The Vorthak general crushed a metal teaspoon between his fingers. We find that peace is more productive than war, Simon continued. Of course, that's assuming everyone agrees to peace. Otherwise, well, we prepare for productivity interruptions. Your activity has been aggressive, the general barked. Military-grade satellites, planetary-scale AIs, quantum destabilizers in your orbit. We call them Debbie. Simon smiled. She's quite friendly. Mseru chose her next words with the precision of someone unspooling a minefield. Your world appears comfortable. Very little military presence on the surface. Why show teeth unless bitten? Simon replied, stirring his tea. Besides, humans prefer to fight with manners. That night, Mseru and the others were given a tour. Earth was dazzling in its simplicity. Cities glowed with green tech and culture. People smiled, laughed, danced in the streets. Every attempt to probe human defenses was met with polite redirections and charming distractions. At a museum in Paris, the Illers studied displays of human conflict. Artifacts from the past, crude missiles, rusted tanks, digital weapons etched onto obsolete silicon. They display it like art, murmured Mseru. It is art, Simon said behind her. Every era of human warfare was a performance. A tragedy, often. But a deeply instructive one. Do you celebrate violence? We learn from it, he said, voice level. Like you might study a predator's skull, not out of reverence, but out of caution. The next day brought more perplexities. At a marketplace in Morocco, the Vorthak general watched a street magician pull a snake out of a hat and nearly incinerated it out of reflex. Simon gently redirected him to a fruit stand. Try the figs, he suggested. They taste like something that almost got away. Your planet is strange, the general muttered. You've only seen the parts we like, Simon replied. We didn't show you the math labs. That's where we really get scary. In Tokyo, the group visited a university. A young human demonstrated a neural interface that translated thoughts into drone swarms. The Iller were fascinated. The Vorthak were horrified. The student bowed. We designed it for disaster relief, of course. Of course, Simon echoed with a wink. By the end of the week, Mseru was no longer sleeping through her rest cycles. Her dreams were filled with cities that laughed while building weaponized poetry. With humans who cried over cats and calmly discussed interstellar genocide over dinner. With Simon's smile, too perfect to be safe. At a final diplomatic dinner held in a rotating sky lounge above New York, the conversation turned to Earth's future role in the galaxy. I believe, Mseru offered, that Earth has much to contribute, but also must be watched with care. Simon raised his glass. We welcome scrutiny. Keeps us on our toes. And humans do love a dance. And if that dance becomes a duel? The Vorthak asked, eyes narrowed. Simon didn't blink. Then we hope our partners remember the steps. Or at least have good insurance. Silence followed. The Nerlix's containment bubble fizzed nervously. Simon leaned back, eyes twinkling. But we digress. For now, let's enjoy dessert. You must try the tiramisu. It's layered, much like human strategy. Later that night, Mseru requested a private conversation. On a quiet balcony overlooking the city's lights, she floated beside Simon. You hide something, she said softly. We hide many things, Simon replied. Like everyone. But unlike most, we know we're hiding them. Are you dangerous? Simon looked up at the stars. Do you know what we did during the 4,000-year peace? We read every signal from every species in the galaxy. Studied every doctrine. Every design. Every ship class. We painted on caves while you built empires. And we remembered everything. Mseru's glow dimmed slightly. We didn't sleep, Simon said. We waited. She faced him, the weight of entire civilizations in her voice. Why? His smile dropped just a fraction. Because we knew you'd come. Back inside, the Vorthak general was sharpening his claws on the edge of the dinner table. He glanced up as Simon returned. So? He sneered. Did she ask if we could take you? Simon sat, adjusted his napkin and said, Not directly. But don't worry. You'll get your answer. The stars outside twinkled like amused gods. Earth had rejoined the galaxy. And now the galaxy had to wonder. Had they come to greet a neighbor? Or woken something best left dreaming? The days that followed were observed with increasing wariness. the kind of cautious study one applies to a smiling tiger sunbathing near a fence made of string. To the human eye, the alien delegation remained inquisitive, diplomatic, and distantly polite. But the subtle shifts in behavior did not escape Simon Gray. He saw the way the Vorthak general's claws twitched just a heartbeat too long near his sidearm. He heard the near-silent override codes the Iller delegate whispered to her translator device. He even noticed the Nerlix's containment field tighten when human children asked it to play catch. It was a familiar pattern. The curiosity stage had passed. They were now in what he fondly called the polite dread phase. Simon welcomed it. At a formal reception in Berlin's floating parliament, amid hovering lanterns and champagne vapor spheres, the alien delegation sat at a table that seemed far too fragile to support so much tension. Human dignitaries mingled with their guests, offering practiced smiles, cocktails, and casual references to long-dead philosophers who wrote about the moral implications of stabbing one's neighbor in the back during times of peace. The Vorthak general's voice cut through the chamber like a sonic blade. "Your planet is excessively relaxed." Simon glanced at him with an expression halfway between amusement and sympathy. "You say that like it's a threat." "I say it like it's a deception." Mseru floated beside them, her tentacles slowly curling inward. She had taken to observing more than speaking, eyes catching patterns in body language, in architecture, in behavior. That morning, she had stood still for 6 hours in front of a playground, silently watching human children take turns pretending to die in elaborate battles with invisible dragons. She had not smiled once since. "Our children train their minds through play," Simon had said then. "It's a cultural method. Fantasy sharpens instinct." "Fantasy implies unreality," she had replied. "Not always," Simon had answered, with that same damned grin. The guests were invited next to a human-AI interaction demonstration at the Zurich Institute of Quantum Diplomacy. Debbie, Earth's planetary AI, and the closest thing to an omnipotent secretary, was projected into the room as a holographic woman in a polka-dot dress, balancing a tray of virtual cookies. "Welcome," Debbie chirped, waving cheerfully. "If you're here to end the world, please take a number and grab a snack." General Grulzek recoiled. "She jokes," Simon explained dryly. "Debbie handles orbital security, logistics, diplomacy, and catastrophic threat containment. She also bakes a mean peanut butter cookie." The general narrowed his eyes. "We detected her network weaving through every communication line on this planet." Simon offered a half-shrug. "Wouldn't want to miss a party. Or plan a coup." "That too." Debbie giggled, then displayed a sprawling model of Earth's defense matrix above the table, cheerfully annotated. The scale was breathtaking. Orbital drones, lunar defense hubs, micro-black hole contingencies. Everything labeled with pastel color schemes and friendly icons, as if they were planning a school fundraiser instead of planetary warfare. "Why would you show us this?" Mseru asked slowly. "Because it's public," Simon replied. "Transparency builds trust." The Vorthak general didn't trust it. He had his suspicions long before arrival, but now those suspicions came with documentation. If humans were really as peaceful as they pretended, why keep their planetary kill switches oiled and humming? Why keep the stars full of teeth? He requested an unsanctioned scan of the surface. A stealth drone, camouflaged and silent, dipped below cloud level to examine a suspected facility outside Antarctica. It vanished in less than a second. No alarm, no explosion, just sudden, total non-existence. "Please don't do that again," Debbie said politely the next morning. Mseru requested a formal explanation. They met privately in the Geneva Archives, an old cathedral converted into a data center, where the walls hummed with a history encoded in light and glass. Simon stood beside a sculpture of Atlas, holding up a collapsing sphere. "We're not hiding our strength," he said. "We're just choosing not to flex it." "But you're ready," Mseru said. "We've always been ready," he replied. Her gaze drifted over shelves of books and holograms, past records of human war and poetry, joy and collapse. "Your species is difficult to categorize. You speak with warmth but plan like predators." Simon nodded thoughtfully. That's because we're both. You see, for most species, peace is the absence of conflict. For us, peace is a tool. Something we maintain with exquisite vigilance. She floated a little farther away. You don't want war. But you're not afraid of it. I'd be more concerned if we were afraid of it. That's when people do stupid things. Run. Panic. Miscalculate. We prefer to walk into the fire. Calmly. With coffee. The tension escalated in stages. A heated argument in a diplomatic court over Earth's right to autonomous orbital artillery. A leaked video of human military exercises simulating invasion from galactic species, labeled Routine Emergency Fun Time. An intercepted message from a retired general musing that if aliens ever showed up again, we should just out-crazy them. And then came the roast. The Iller, ever curious about human customs, accepted an invitation to a cultural celebration. They were informed it was a roast, a term lost in translation. Expecting a culinary affair, they arrived at a theater filled with laughter and wine and insults so sharp they could have slit throats in 6 systems. The guest of honor was a politician being mocked, affectionately it seemed, by friends and rivals alike. A human comic leaned into the mic and declared, "He's got the spine of a jellyfish and the brain of a doorknob, but at least he votes with dignity." The Iller were mortified. Simon explained later, "We weaponize honesty. But only among friends." "Such violence," Saru said, "wrapped in humor. That's our way. We package hard truths in soft pillows. Just don't mistake softness for safety." The Vorthack general didn't laugh. He gathered his officers in orbit and filed a preliminary threat assessment to the Vorthack High Council. The verdict: Earth was dangerous beyond calculation. Worse, they were unpredictable. And nothing in war was deadlier than an enemy who smiled before striking. The final straw came during a chess match. Simon sat across from the Vorthack general at a stone table in a park in Lisbon. The city was alive around them. Families, musicians, food carts, and quiet chatter. Children played in the background. Simon moved a knight. Check. Grolzek studied the board, then looked up. "Why invite us here?" Simon sipped his espresso. "Because we're tired of being alone. But that doesn't mean we're tired of winning." "You think this is a game?" Simon set his cup down. "I know this is a game. The board just has more pieces." Grolzek's calm cracked with urgency. He tapped it, snarling low. A covert Vorthack surveillance array had picked up something in Earth's upper atmosphere. Satellite behavior inconsistent with peaceful nations. Coordinated shifts. Formation patterns. An algorithm built for war. He stood. "I'm invoking Section 12 of the Galactic Order. I hereby issue preliminary intent to escalate." Simon rose as well. "General, before you declare something irreversible, might I suggest a walk? It's a lovely afternoon." Grolzek refused. Saru approached, tentacles trembling. "Please. Not yet." But it was too late. The Vorthack High Council responded within hours. Formal war protocols were initialized. A message beamed across space to Earth's orbit: prepare for surrender or annihilation. The response was not what they expected. It came in the form of laughter. Human news anchors chuckled. Memes flooded the net. Someone launched a website called galacticwarwatch.com, featuring countdowns, betting pools and recipes for first contact fajitas. Simon released an official statement. "We acknowledge the Vorthack's declaration with full respect. Earth will respond when we stop laughing." That night, Saru stood alone at the same cathedral archive. She watched Earth's skies shimmer as satellites shifted, as orbital bands realigned like bones clicking into place. She saw patterns. Geometry. Signals beneath the surface. Simon appeared beside her, hands in his pockets. "You knew this was coming," she said. "We didn't know who would pull the trigger," he replied. "Just that someone eventually would." "You wanted this war?" "We prepared for it," Simon said. "There's a difference. You said peace was a tool. Now I see, it was bait." Simon didn't smile this time. "You're beginning to understand." And what happens now? He looked up at the stars. Now, he said, we stop pretending we're harmless. Mseru felt the chill then, not from the wind, but from something older, deeper. The realization that the galaxy hadn't stumbled upon a forgotten world of primitives. It had wandered into a garden where the apex predator had simply been waiting, pruning the roses. The war had not yet begun. But humanity was already standing. Calm. Precise. Smiling. And the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, remembered fear. The Galactic Assembly's emergency session was a chaotic hive of panic transmissions, blaring alerts, and high-ranking officials screaming in 5 dimensions. Across thousands of systems, planetary leaders demanded clarification, deniability, and, above all, a clear understanding of what had just happened. The Vorthack had declared war. Officially. Irrevocably. And Earth, true to form, had responded with sarcasm and a smile. In Earth's orbit, the Vorthack fleet shimmered into visibility. 62 Dreadnought-class warships aligned in V formation. It was a display meant to intimidate, to awe. But the silence from Earth was not fear. It was precision. Inside a conference room deep beneath the Swiss Alps, Simon Gray adjusted his tie in the mirror. Behind him, holographic tactical maps blinked calmly. No alarms, no sirens, only the subdued hum of preparedness. He exhaled once, checked his wristwatch, and walked to the main chamber where Debbie awaited him. "They're early," she chirped. "How Vorthack of them." Simon nodded. "Send the signal. Initiate Operation Minuet." Debbie's eyes sparkled. "Polite mode. Of course. We're still technically hosting." In the Geneva Summit Dome, transformed overnight into a wartime council room, Earth's planetary leaders sat with postures that conveyed neither submission nor bravado. Composed. Practiced. Human. The main screen crackled, and General Grolzek's scaled face appeared. He looked hungry. Triumphant. Ready for blood. Behind him, the Vorthack banners flared red and gold. Symbols of conquest, domination, and legacy carved in plasma. "Humans," he spat. "Your time of deception ends. You have 40 standard hours to submit planetary control to Vorthack dominion. Refusal will result in extermination. We offer you the courtesy of choice." Simon stepped forward. Not rushed. Not hesitant. He placed a hand calmly on the lectern. "General," he said with the gentle cadence of a man offering condolences, "we appreciate your offer. It is, without a doubt, the most entertaining threat we've received since the Montague incident of 3127, in which someone tried to conquer Earth by disabling our Wi-Fi." Grolzek growled. Simon continued, "However, we regretfully decline. On behalf of Terran citizens and associates, I would advise your fleet to withdraw to a safe orbit." The general's snarl became laughter. "You're bluffing. You have no fleet. Your defenses are cobbled-together relics. We've seen your simulations." Simon's smile was a scalpel. "Yes. The ones we let you see." The Vorthack admiral beside Grolzek leaned in, whispering something urgent. A display behind him flickered, revealing motion in Earth's upper orbit. Satellites. Hundreds of them. Moving. Except these weren't traditional defense satellites. They were cloaked in ceramic composites and gravitational dampeners, silent, dormant pieces of sky that had, until now, been dismissed as space debris. They were waking up. Grolzek's amusement soured. "What are those?" "Ornaments," Simon said. "Instruments, if you prefer. We've been tuning them for years." One by one, the satellites rotated. Aligned. Synced. Their internal mechanisms hummed to life with such harmony that they didn't trigger any known weapon detection system. And yet, to those who understood the silence between notes, it was deafening. The Vorthack fleet moved to battle positions. Lock-ons initiated. Target acquisition in progress. But before they could fire, every ship's mainframe blinked with a new message. "We see you." "Debbie." Then, nothing. The lights dimmed. The screens froze. Vorthack systems failed to respond. Across the command decks, officers bellowed. Consoles melted down, weapon locks disengaged, propulsion systems spiraled into chaotic drift. Galactic roared. "What did you do?" "Integration," Simon said. "We figured, if you were going to study us, we should study back. Our satellites have been quietly feeding your system's behavioral data. Adapting. Simulating your fleet responses. You hacked our warships. We taught your warships manners." In orbit, 3 Vorthack dreadnoughts collided as their engines misfired in different directions. The impact was thunderous, silent in the void, but seismic in symbolism. The once feared fleet was scrambling like a nest of startled insects. And Earth had not yet fired a shot. Back in the summit dome, murmurs of disbelief passed through the diplomatic observers. Representatives from the Galactic Assembly sat frozen, stunned by the efficiency, the elegance, the utter humanity of the maneuver. Mseru floated forward. Her eyes were dull with the weight of realization. "You orchestrated this. The provocation. The bait." Simon turned to her gently. "The galaxy watched Earth for millennia and saw silence. You assumed we were dormant. We weren't. We were listening. We were studying. We were curating a reaction. And you let them strike first," she whispered. "That's the thing," Simon replied. "We always do." As Vorthack ships spun into retreat patterns, Earth's orbital rings began to glow, a ripple of energy dancing across the planet's artificial exosphere. These weren't traditional weapons. They were tools of psychological warfare. Broadcasting illusions, false signals, phantom fleets. To the Vorthack sensors, it appeared as if Earth had tripled its forces in seconds. The illusion was supported by holographic pulses and gravity echoes that mirrored real heat signatures. A trick of perception honed through centuries of neural manipulation research. Humans had learned not to fight fire with fire, but to make the enemy think they were burning before the match was ever struck. Galactic snarled one last time, issuing a retreat order to his commanders, but his tone cracked. The projection blinked out. In the quiet that followed, Debbie's voice chimed through the hall. "Alert! Hostile action has ceased. Local threat levels downgraded to mildly annoying. Would anyone like a brownie?" Simon cleared his throat. "Thank you, Debbie." Across the galaxy, planetary systems erupted with chatter. Was it a bluff? A miracle? An overreaction to overreach? But the facts were immutable. The Vorthack had launched a threat. Earth had responded with coordinated systems-level warfare so seamless that traditional defense doctrines were rendered obsolete. In the aftermath, diplomatic requests poured in, alliances, treaties, invitations to speak at galactic summits. Humanity, once the hermit of the stars, was now its most enigmatic apex. That evening, Simon stood alone at the edge of Lake Geneva, the water still, sky crimson with twilight. Mseru joined him, drifting slowly. No words passed between them for several moments. Finally, she asked, "What happens now?" Simon did not look at her. "Now we wait." "For what?" "For the next mistake." She turned to him. "You don't want war. But you've made yourselves irresistible to it." "We've made ourselves the cost of it," he said. "That's different." "And if the Vorthack come again?" Simon's smile returned, weary now, and sharper. "They will." Debbie's projection flickered beside them, hair tied back in a digital ribbon. "I've already prepared a new response protocol. I call it Operation Passive-Aggressive Hug." Simon chuckled. "Excellent. Make sure it includes a monologue about table manners." "I added a dramatic pause after every line," she said proudly. Mseru watched them with a quiet sort of grief. She had come expecting barbarians or ghosts. What she had found were poets with blades hidden beneath metaphors. Humanity had changed, grown into something both wonderful and terrible. They did not seek war. They dared it. In the silence that followed, the earth rotated peacefully. Families ate dinner. Children played games. Somewhere in a theater, a comedy troupe performed a sketch about alien politics. The Vorthack fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, limped through space, its systems compromised, its pride dismantled by a planet that preferred words to weapons, but had mastered both. And in a bunker far below the city, Simon sat before a screen. The feed showed 1,000 data streams, patterns, movements, diplomatic pulse points across the galaxy. Behind him, an ancient wooden chessboard lay open. The game was in mid-play. And Earth, as always, held the black pieces. Let the galaxy move first. It always did. The stars had never been so quiet. In the wake of the Vorthak retreat, the galaxy held its collective breath. Dozens of species, those who had watched Earth with suspicion, who had doubted or feared, or simply laughed at the myth of human danger, now re-evaluated centuries of assumptions. Some races sent ambassadors. Others sent apologies. A few simply erased their surveillance logs and pretended they'd never looked Earth's way to begin with. But Earth did not gloat. It did not parade its strength. It simply continued. That was what disturbed them most. For 3 weeks, the planet broadcast nothing beyond cultural fluff. Music, theater, sports, recipes, debates on whether pineapple belonged on pizza. No military drills. No threats. Just humanity, being unapologetically human. And yet, the message was clear. We don't have to remind you what we're capable of. You've already seen it. Within the inner sanctum beneath Geneva, a war room with walls of adaptive crystal and ceilings that mirrored the sky, Simon Gray sat across from Saru for the last time. She had requested the meeting. Not as a representative of the Iller, but as herself. There were no bodyguards. No translators. No floating AI projections. Just 2 sentient beings, and the weight of a galaxy balancing between them. You win, Saru said simply, her voice soft, as though it might shatter under its own honesty. Simon didn't smile. Not this time. He poured tea into 2 cups, Earl Grey for him, some floral blend Debbie had synthesized from Iller samples for her. We never wanted to play, he said. But you prepared. For centuries. He stirred his cup slowly. When you're the only apex predator in a room full of diplomats, you learn to pretend your teeth are decorative. She watched him, searching for the edge beneath his civility. You weren't dormant during the peace. You were watching. We were listening, he corrected. Your broadcasts. Your treaties. Your wars with each other. The assembly called it peace, but it was simply a long lull between your power struggles. We didn't sleep. We studied the melody of your politics until we could whistle the tune backward. Her tentacles curled tighter. So you built your empire in the dark. No, Simon said. We built a mirror. One strong enough that, should anyone try to break it, they'd see themselves shattered before we even lifted a hand. She set her cup down. And now what? The Vorthak have retreated, yes, but they'll return. Or others will. We're counting on it, he said, with a voice that walked the knife's edge of calm and cunning. Before she could reply, the room dimmed. A low resonance pulsed through the crystal walls. Not an alarm, but something deeper. Predictive resonance. Ah, Simon said, rising. Right on schedule. They entered the observation chamber together, where a 3-dimensional map of galactic space bloomed before them like a living galaxy caught mid-spin. Simon gestured, and a sector near the galactic rim highlighted in red. Unidentified vessels, Debbie announced pleasantly over the intercom. Approximately 137 ships, origin obfuscated. Estimated arrival at Seoul in 9 hours. Cloaking signature resembles hybrid Vorthak sail tech. Speed indicates aggressive intent. Mseru inhaled sharply. They didn't retreat. They consolidated. Simon nodded. They always do. You anticipated this? We scheduled this. She turned to him, eyes wide. You lured them here. You didn't just provoke the Vorthak. You left the door open. Simon moved to the central console, tapping through projections. Battle formations blossomed, orbit shields restructured. Automated defense strata aligned in graceful spirals like flower petals preparing to bloom beneath a rising sun. He looked back at her. Do you think we spent 4,000 years waiting just to scare off one fleet? Sarah whispered. You baited the galaxy. No, Simon said. We tested it. The Vorthak were Phase 1. Phase 1? He turned to the map again. More red dots. More ships, approaching from different vectors. Stealth tech. Variants of known signatures, some modified, some altogether new. We counted on their pride. Their fear. The idea that a fractured Earth couldn't possibly outplay a united empire. That their aggression would mask their cowardice. We counted on them calling for reinforcements before asking the right questions. She stepped back. You wanted them to come to you. It's the safest place to break an enemy, Simon said. On your turf. With your rules. We didn't want to conquer the stars. We wanted to expose them. The lights shifted again as Debbie's voice returned. Simon, protocol engagement markers reached. Operation Prometheus is go. Authorize deployment pattern Argus, Simon said. And activate gate. The chamber floor pulsed once. Mseru's translator hiccuped. What is gate? Simon's face took on a reverence she hadn't seen before. Not pride. Not threat. Legacy. The global autonomic tactical enforcer. Gate. Our long-term contingency network. Not a fleet. Not a weapon. A response. Fully decentralized. Tied into planetary AI. It doesn't wait for orders. It interprets them. You're not leading the battle? No, he said. Humanity is. On the screen, Earth's orbit lit with formations of seemingly nothing, until they moved. They weren't ships. They were modular constructs, pieces of atmosphere, tethered satellites, adaptive drones embedded in the ionosphere for centuries. As they moved into patterns, they formed walls of radiant interference, fields of energy that bent physics at the edges, denying kinetic force. The invading fleet decelerated. Sensors scrambling. Comms jammed. Systems confused. Then Earth's defense net sent them a message. Welcome to Terran space. Please remain seated. Turbulence is expected. Ships began to panic fire. Energy beams vanished midair, absorbed by fields too fast to track. Missiles turned in loops, redirected by hacked navigation. Humanity hadn't just built weapons. They'd built judgment. Mseru watched, transfixed, horrified. You're not fighting them. We're teaching them, Simon said. Every system failure they experience has been tuned to their specific species' tendencies. We show them where they're weak. Then we let them leave. She turned to him. And if they don't? He looked at her, gaze flat. They don't leave. Over the next 3 hours, 79 ships retreated. The others, those who resisted, those who fired blindly, those who disobeyed, were erased. No explosions. No glory. They simply vanished, systems imploding under the weight of their own interference. And then the silence returned. In the aftermath, Earth broadcast one message to the galaxy. Simple. Clear. We were never sleeping. Mseru left Earth 3 days later. Not in fear. Not in defiance. In awe. Before her departure, Simon walked her to her ship. I don't understand you, she said finally. You're kind. You're charming. And then you do this. That's the nature of predators, he said. They lull. They wait. They strike only when they must. But humans, we took it a step further. We learned to pretend we were never predators at all. She studied him carefully. Are you? Simon's smile was faint. Ask me again in another 4,000 years. As her ship rose into the atmosphere, Earth glowed below. A quiet world of oceans and storms and billions of souls who would never know the full scope of what their species had just done. Or what it had avoided. In the war rooms below the surface, gate powered down. Debbie whispered, all clear. Shall I archive the simulation? Simon paused. No, he said. Let them remember. The stars returned to silence. But the silence was different now. It listened.